forerunners of the equestrian order appear to have been raised by the mythical Romulus, but the truth behind this is unknown. During the start of the Republic, 509 BC, horses realistically would have only been owned by the rich, but yet there are three classes of equestrians, that being the equites, the wealthy citizens, the pedites, the citizen infantry, and the proletari, the non-fighting poor. So, how could the poorest citizens be able to purchase and maintain their horses? The answer to this is the earliest Roman cavalry during the Republic were supported by the state. Their horses and the food for them were state subsidized. As discussed previously, there are three distinct classes of equestrians, but if one were to look further into the equites, the wealthy citizens, we can see how there are actually 5 groups of equites. The first group being the Ducarii, as they are formally defined as the Romans themselves as senators or knights of all the Ducarii established for jury purposes. The second group, the Eques Publicus, were a group of equestrians who were to attend commemorative ceremonies, who they themselves would wear the trabe, their special costume to say. The third group was that of senatorial families. The equites of senatorial rank are the young sons of senators who are not yet gazettor. Group 4, the elite of service, public careers as holders of the militae and as procurators. And finally, the last group, Group 5, that being equestrian families, which were equestrians who were descendants of equites, making them, again, potential equites. Identifying these separate groups is in a way artificial, since these categories all make up the same order, Ordo Equester. Around 129 BC, there was a defining moment that further split the inquisitory class from that of senators, and that was the law that required senators to surrender their membership of the inquisitorian class. This had a lot of consequences, however, as senators could not partake in tax farming, and since the Roman Republic had restricted business-related activities to senators, this gave a new spotlight for equestrians to take on more important commercial roles, such as merchants and tax farmers. This allowed them to accumulate great wealth. In 123 BC, Gracchus established the Quisitio de Retipundis that allowed equestrians to act as jurors in dealings of corruption. This continued until 70 BC. However, Gaius Gracchus' actions did not go unnoticed, and an organized force by Consul Lucius Oppipius attacked Gaius and his followers at the Aventine, leading to Gaius' suicide and the death of his lineage. Furthermore, we can see more privileges that were endowed to the equestriae. As a Roman law, the Lex Rossia of 67 BC reserved the 14 front rows of the theaters to the equestrians. Equites were given a gold ring, as discussed in class, that they were to wear on their left hand. Along with this, however, equites were given the official dress, which was a narrow striped tunic that was worn underneath a toga. During Augustus' reign of power, many changes of government were made. Augustus allowed impoverished sons of equites to remain in the equestrian order and paid indigent equestrians who lost their money not to their own fault. Augustus enhanced the position of the equestrians. He awarded senior government posts to equites rather than that to senators, and encouraged others to join. Now, all Roman citizens could have the potential to join as long as they were in good health and owned at least 400,000 sesterces, compared to that of the senatorial class requiring 1 million sesterces. To add to this statement, it allowed for a lot of hierarchical change, as equestrians did not have to be of Roman birth. 5 years after the passing of Augustus' new laws were put in place, looking at the primary source, one can see the Senatus Consultum of 19 CE found at Larnium shows how the preservation of the aristocratic classes was deemed necessary, as the Consultum states that men with grandfathers or fathers from the inquisitory or senatorial class could not compete in gladiatorial combat. The Consultum also states that granddaughters and daughters of equestrian knights could not register as prostitutes. The equipment of the Roman cavalry is hard to pinpoint due to its diverse origins, as a armored-clad Gallic horseman would have different equipment than that of a lightly armored Numidian. But as Rome often does, there is standardization, and of course standardization of equipment. Now we can see this in multiple different areas. Firstly, with shielding, most cavalrymen in the Roman army used something called a clipius, which was incorporated in most cavalry units, which was an oval or hexagonal shaped shield. Then there comes the armor. There were three primary armors that a cavalryman could choose to wear. There was the lorica squamata, which was a leather scale armor. Then there was the lorica hamata, which is a chainmail-ish armor. And finally, we have the most popular in media depictions, that being the lorica segmenta, which you'll often see as steel plates put atop of one another, descending down from the torso and covering most of the shoulder and part of the arm. And then we get to the headgear. As Romans often do, they love incorporating other nations and other nationalities' equipment into their own, and we can see this in their headgear. They used a Celtic headgear, and they eventually modified it to have a fixed cheek guard and a fixed nape guard to protect the nape, which is the back of the neck. And along with this, we can talk about weapons now. So when it comes to weapons for the cavalrymen, they usually carried around 3 lancea, which in a sense were spears capable of being thrusted or thrown at enemies, and it was usually approximately 1.8 meters long. And to add, a spear is no good unless you have a horse, and Romans' horses were usually short and stocky, unlike other depictions which show them having medieval-esque horses. There was no need for that. And on top of the horses, they usually used a 4-horn saddle, which was meant to encapsulate the Roman on the horse, but not taking away his movement. So he would still be able to use a spear and maneuver himself well on the horse. And finally, the last weaponry that most Roman cavalrymen used was something called a spatha. It was around 91 centimeters long.
And that
it was
concludes
a
the video.
I hope you learned something interesting about the equestrian order from the time of the early Republic, nearing the start of the Roman Empire. Thank you, and bye-bye.